He walks through the world carrying a role. Every day, he wears the same mask. He's the dependable one, the solid man, the husband who provides, who protects, who does what is expected. He sits at dinner, he smiles in family photos, he answers, calls, and solves problems, and he does it well. Everyone sees a man who has his life together, but no one really sees him. No one sees the part of him that feels deeply, but hides it behind duty. The part that still dreams, even when the days are heavy with routine. The part that aches quietly when no one is watching. Then one day, he met you, and you didn't see the role. You didn't see the surface. You saw the man. You didn't even try. That's what made it so disarming. You weren't trying to impress him. You weren't chasing. You were just there, present, intuitive, soft in a way that didn't ask, didn't pull, didn't demand. And that's when something broke inside him. Not in a destructive way, but in a way that opened space. A space he hadn't felt in years. Carl Jung once said that people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. And yet sometimes, all it takes is another person's gaze to bring us straight to it. That's what happened when he looked at you. You didn't just look at him. You recognized him. You saw through the armor, into the tension, into the forgotten fire still smoldering behind his eyes. And it shook him. With his wife, he plays the role, not because he doesn't love her, but because that's the container where his life settled. Over time, routine replaced intimacy. Predictability replaced passion. There was no room left for the mystery, the fire, the soul of a man who still wanted to feel alive. So he buried it slowly, without even noticing, until you showed up. You weren't a threat. You weren't a plan. But suddenly, everything about his life felt like it had been running on autopilot. His words felt rehearsed, his steps too calculated. He would go home after seeing you and notice the silence. The way conversations at dinner had no spark. The way he hadn't laughed, not really, in weeks. The way his chest felt tight without reason. And then he'd remember the way your eyes held his, and how, for a moment, he could breathe again. You saw him, not the version his family expects, not the provider, not the protector, but the man. Inside, the one who aches for meaning, for wildness, for depth. And that's why he can't forget. Because when someone sees you that clearly, it's impossible to go back to being invisible. He began to notice things. The way he felt lighter around you, even without speaking. The way your energy calmed him, grounded him, yet stirred something inside him that had long been dormant. He found himself lingering in your presence, wanting to hear your thoughts, wanting to know how you see the world. It wasn't about flirtation, it was about resonance. And that made it dangerous, because you weren't just attractive, you were reflective. You made him see himself in a way he hadn't in years. You made him realize what he was missing, not in his marriage, but in his soul. And that is a much deeper kind of ache. He never said anything. Maybe he never will. He keeps it hidden, like a sacred fire in the dark. But his body speaks. His breath changes around you. His eyes linger longer than they should. His voice softens when he speaks to you. And in those tiny cracks, his truth escapes. You became the space where he could feel again. You never asked him to leave anything. You never demanded his time or affection. But still, he feels torn. Because even if you never crossed a line, your presence alone became a choice between staying numb or feeling something real again. And so, he distances himself. He becomes colder, quieter. He avoids you, not because you're wrong, but because you're too right. You bring up questions he doesn't want to answer. You remind him of the man he buried beneath the routines. And he doesn't know what to do with that. He tells himself to move on, that it was nothing, that he imagined the connection, that it was just a moment. But it's not true, because it wasn't what you did. It was what you revealed. You revealed the crack in the mask. And now that he's seen it, he can't unsee it. He still goes home, still plays the role, still smiles and nods. But somewhere, deep inside, something shifted. And that shift has your name on it. He doesn't talk about it. Maybe he never will. But he carries it. Every time he thinks of you. Every time he wonders what it would feel like to be himself. Fully, without explanation, without performance. Because that's what you gave him. The space to just be. No expectations. No labels. Just being. And now he misses that space. Even when he's surrounded by love, responsibility, commitment, he misses you. Not because you're better, not because you're newer, but because you saw the version of him that he thought was long gone. You made him remember. And remembering hurts, because it means there's still a part of him that wants to be known, that craves to be understood, that still believes in a connection that doesn't need to be explained or defended, just felt, and he felt it with you. That's why he can't fully let go. Even if he disappears, even if he avoids you, even if he ghosts or retreats or pretends like nothing happened, he still carries you, because no man forgets the moment he was finally seen. There are things he still carries in his silence, not because he wants to hide them, but because he doesn't have the language to speak them. What he felt with you was never simple. It wasn't about crossing lines or seeking escape. It was about being reminded that somewhere inside him, the real man still exists, the one who feels deeply, who wants to be held without needing to be strong, who longs for a connection that asks for nothing but sees everything. You saw him in a way no one else did. You saw the tiredness beneath his pride, the dreams behind his quiet, the fear inside his composure. You looked at him and didn't ask him to be more. You simply allowed him to be. That's what shook him the most, because he didn't have to earn your attention. He didn't have to prove himself. He just had to show up, and you met him there, fully. And now he walks through his life as if nothing changed, but everything did. Because after being seen like that, every other version of love feels like pretending. Before we go deeper, here's something that might change how you see all of this. If you've ever been the woman who awakened something in a man that even he didn't know was asleep, the Jung method can help you understand the unconscious forces at play and how to finally reclaim your power. The link is pinned in the first comment. There are things he still carries in his silence, not because he wants to hide them, but because he doesn't have the language to speak them. What he felt with you was never simple. It wasn't about crossing lines or seeking escape. It was about being reminded that somewhere inside him, the real man still exists, the one who feels deeply, who wants to be held without needing to be strong, who longs for a connection that asks for nothing but sees everything. You saw him in a way no one else did. You saw the tiredness beneath his pride, the dreams behind his quiet, the fear inside his composure. You looked at him and didn't ask him to be more, you simply allowed him to be. That's what shook him the most, because he didn't have to earn your attention. He didn't have to prove himself. He just had to show up, and you met him there fully. And now he walks through his life as if nothing changed, but everything did. Because after being seen like that, every other version of love feels like pretending. He sits across the table from someone who knows his schedule but not his soul. He answers questions about bills and errands, but no one asks how he's really doing. No one looks him in the eye and lingers, waiting for the real answer. No one slows down long enough to feel the shift in his tone, the tension in his hands, the pauses between his words. No one except you. And so, he becomes quieter, not because he's fine, but because he's protecting what you've stirred in him. That part of him is fragile now, awake, but unsure. It wants to breathe, but doesn't know how in the life he's built. You didn't ask him to change, but you changed everything. Now he thinks about you when no one is watching. In the morning, when he wakes up before the alarm and stares at the ceiling. At night, when the house is quiet and the routine is finished. In between moments, when something reminds him of your presence, the way you looked at him, the sound of your voice, the energy that surrounded you like a soft light. He doesn't message you, he doesn't call, but he remembers. And remembering has become its own form of longing. He'll tell himself stories, that it wasn't real, that it was just timing, that it was emotional confusion. But his body doesn't lie, his thoughts don't lie. The way he avoids certain places, certain songs, even certain words, that's not coincidence. That's grief. Grief for a connection that awakened something in him, and then disappeared without closure. And maybe you feel it too. The strange tension that follows you, the sensation that something isn't finished, even though everything appears to be, the way you still feel his presence in rooms he's never been in. That's not fantasy. That's resonance. Because once two souls lock into recognition, time and distance lose their grip. You weren't meant to be a storyline. You were a moment of remembering. And moments like that don't fade. They imprint. And while he tries to carry on, to live the life he's committed to, a part of him lingers with you. Because when you made eye contact with him, something ancient in his body said yes. A yes that had been denied for so long, it almost forgot what it meant to feel. And now, even if he denies it out loud, something inside him still reaches for that yes. He might try to shut it down, to rationalize, to make it disappear. but it won't, because it's not just about you, it's about him. It's about the version of himself that only existed when he was with you. And when he loses you, he loses access to that version too. That's the real loss. He didn't just lose a connection, he lost the feeling of being alive, and that's why he never forgets. He goes back to the same house, wears the same smile, lives the same routine, but something's missing now. Something he can't explain, something he doesn't even try to name anymore, because naming it would make it too real. And real would mean reckoning with everything that no longer fits. So he swallows it, buries it, pretends. But then he sees a woman walking down the street who moves like you. He hears a laugh that sounds like yours. He smells something in the air that reminds him of that one afternoon when nothing happened but everything shifted. And for a moment, his heart stumbles. He wonders what would have happened if he had said more, if he had stayed a little longer, if he had asked you how you felt, if he had told you what he really felt. But now those questions hang in the air, unanswered, unfinished, and maybe you've moved on, maybe you've buried it too. Maybe you tell yourself it didn't mean much, but deep down, you know, you were the mirror, you were the moment, you were the one who made the noise inside him impossible to ignore. He's not the same, and neither are you, because once you've been truly seen, everything else feels like a mask. And even if he never speaks it out loud, even if he stays loyal to his image, even if years pass and the world forgets, his soul remembers. It remembers the weight of your gaze, the silence that felt safe, the electricity in the air, the stillness where truth lived. And it hurts, not because it ended, but because it never got to begin. And in another lifetime, maybe he would have been brave. Maybe he would have followed the pull. Maybe he would have chosen presence over performance. But this is the life he chose. And in this life, he remembers you from a distance. And you, the woman who never asked for anything, who never demanded or pushed, who simply looked at him and saw the man inside the mask. You remain the echo in his body, the softness he never found again, the silence he listens for but never hears. Because to his wife, he's still the husband. But with you, for one sacred moment, he was himself. And that version of him will always live in the space you held. Even if no one else ever sees it again, you did, and he will never forget that. Asterisks, some things are never said out loud, because saying them would make them too real. He won't tell his friends. He won't admit it to himself. But when he's alone, when the world goes quiet and no one needs anything from him, you return. You are the memory he doesn't name but keeps alive. You are the feeling he didn't expect but now can't live without. And in the small moments when his guard slips, he lets himself feel it, just for a second, just enough to breathe again. It's not about having you. It's about the man he became when he was around you. The way you opened something without trying. The way you invited depth just by being. The way your presence made him remember what truth feels like in the body. And now, even though he chose the path that made sense, he will forever feel the one that made him feel. He will listen to songs differently. He will walk through places where you were once near. He will pause when he sees your name or a glimpse of someone who moves like you. And for the rest of his life, he will carry the contrast between what is and what could have been. Because to be seen fully, even once, is to be changed forever. And you did that. Without trying, without asking, without staying. You changed everything, and he will always remember. Not because you demanded space, but because you gave him something no one else could. A glimpse of who he really is, and a taste of what it feels like to finally be seen.